Hey, everybody, welcome back. And when I say welcome back this time, I mean really welcome back because I have never had this happen to me before. But I had Marlisse on before, and we had one of the most beautiful hours together that I could ever imagine. We spoke about her story and we had her on the podcast, and it was absolutely exquisite. And then I went to look for it and find it, and I could not find it for heck or high water. And so, um, and then we were just talking now in the green room, and she told me the story about how her son had heard it somehow and was moved by it because he's heard her story so many times before that he was moved by it. So I'm setting myself up right now for a big flop because we've got to, hopefully we'll get something that comes out. But I think it's almost impossible to be with this woman and not have something beautiful happen. The story of her life is not one that most people would imagine would create a beautiful outcome. In fact, most of us would look at it and say, thank God that didn't happen to me. And you would be right in saying that. But there's something about Marlisse that has gone into her story, has told her story. So much so that we're talking now. I told her she has to write a book, and we might help each other to do that. So, but that's the story has to get out. So, in my complete shame and embarrassment, I went to her and I said, "I don't know what happened to that podcast, and would you mind re-recording it with me?" And she said it would be a pleasure. So her kindness, I want to thank you for that because that's some people would have said, boy, you wasted my time, blah, 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 blah. Um, I'm honored to have another hour to spend with her. So let me tell you a little bit about her so that I can stop speaking so much and let her start talking more. Um, and I want to introduce her the way she introduces herself. I want you to imagine her voice saying this. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Lisa. I'm a survivor. Yes, I was abused and suffered from the result of that abuse. Yes, I cried and even tried to end my life several times. I hated myself and everyone else. I was bitter and angry. I lived in a place of darkness. It covered my soul. I drank and I smoked just to numb the pain. I lived in a world of victimization, unable to heal or forgive. But today, I dance in the light of my life, not as a victim, but as a victor. I have learned to not only forgive my perpetrators, but to forgive myself. I have learned to move past my pain, not by pretending it never happened, but by drawing strength from it, because it did happen. I have been able to transform my life using my pain as a platform to show women how to live a transformed life, to move beyond their current situation into a place of wholeness, peace, and joy. I am not a victim. I did not let my life destroy me. It made me strong and taught me how to truly live life. When I asked Marlisse her purpose, she told me this. I was placed here to allow my light to shine through adversity and trauma so that I can be a beacon of light to others who are in traumatic situations and that I can love them through their own pain. For more information on the life of Marlisse and the work she's doing, please go to her website, www.transformationspeaks.com. But we have that person sitting with us today. And it's with the biggest honor of my heart to say, Marlisse Hardamon, welcome to the Mosaic Podcast for the second time.
Thank you very much. Every time I hear That's like, wow, is that really me?
Yeah, that's really you, my friend. And so, because people don't know you, because they don't have the opportunity to know that much about you, can you put yourself into any part of that story? Let's start with the first paragraph first, and we'll come to the second paragraph. But tell us a little bit about the story of the first paragraph. What the heck happened?
Oh, let's see. Um, my mother was a victim of domestic violence. So even though my father, and he was, I have to, a good man as far as trying to take care of his family, trying to provide for us. But in doing that, the stress of all of that, he was very violent toward my mother. He didn't hit us, but we did. She was afraid for us that we would grow older. And when I say us, I mean my sister and myself. Um, that we would get older and then he may us, be physically abusive to us. So one day after him beating her um, close to death, we did the great escape. We got in the car with just what we had on and what we could carry. And we moved about 2 or 3 hours from our home to my mother's friend's house with her family. Was her husband, and her children, and we went from being middle class to dirt poor,
Wow.
um,
Hold on one
which
minute.
was hard.
How old were you when that happened?
I want to say I was probably 5.
Wow.
I couldn't have. I was about 5, 4, 5, because I can remember once we moved there. We didn't have birthday celebrations and you didn't get new clothes. So I do remember that on my 6th birthday, I got my first new outfit. And I thought it was the most wonderful thing in the world. I had a birthday party and it was just my mom, my family and her family. But we had pizza and I had new clothes and we were safe and things were good. But there was one rule in my mother's friend's house, which was cleanliness is next to godliness. So everybody was expected to take a bath before they went to bed, because that was just her rule. So I went upstairs to take my bath, and I heard someone jiggling at the door. And I had believed maybe I had just forgotten to put the latch lock on and someone was coming in. But as I went to latch the lock, I remember a big force coming at me and pushing the door open and me falling down next to the toilet. And like I can remember to this day, the smell of urine.
Wow.
And at that point, her husband had pushed his way into the room, and I was going to get in the tub, so I didn't have any clothes on, and he sexually assaulted me.
Oh my God.
And warned me that if I said a word, those people would come and take me. The man would come and take me away from my mother and my sister, and I'd never see him again. So of course I didn't say anything. And this assault continued, probably monthly, until I was probably 8 years old. And of course I never told my mom. And although I really do think his wife knew about it, because I would hear them arguing. And then her anger, once that arguing stopped, her anger turned to me. And like if I was the last one in at lunchtime, then I wasn't permitted to eat lunch with everybody else. I was told I had to wait until everybody else ate, and then I ate what they left on their plates.
Oh, wow.
If I didn't have my area cleaned, I would sit in the hind catcher position for hours. I had rags stuffed down my mouth. I walked in the blistering cold with no hats, no gloves. So it wasn't that she physically hit me. It was that she emotionally tormented me and physically caused me, like, to this day, I have trouble with my knees. And I contribute that to sitting for hours in the hind catcher position and the destruction that has on little kids' knees.
So you moved from a situation with your dad and your mom where he was abusive to her, but from what I'm understanding was not abusive yet to you,
right,
to a situation where, was your mom being abused by these friends of hers?
No, not that I know of. My mom, I mean, she was hard at work trying to get a job, trying to keep a job, trying to get enough money for us to get on our feet, because of course we left with nothing.
Yeah.
So, she had to start at the beginning. So they weren't physically abusive to my sister or to my mother. It was just me. Luck
Wow.
of the unfortunate luck of the draw.
Wow. So your mom's situation got better, but yours got incredibly worse.
Yes.
And your sister's did your sister know of what was going on with you?
Um, every now and then, she's never heard the whole story, and every now and then we'll start to talk about it, and she'll just be like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Wow.
So I don't believe that he ever saw her, but her response tells me something happened.
Right. Right.
Or she saw something, or she knew, because to this day, and she's older than I am, it's conversation that we just don't have. And we're close.
And it almost, I mean, like, who am I to know anything about anything? But why would there be two girls there and him only abuse one girl? Unless that's the pattern of what abuse is that I don't know about. But it makes so much sense that he would tell her not to say anything to you, and he told you don't say anything, and both of you would think you were the only ones. And can you imagine the tension that exists? Because as sisters, you probably were trying to look out for each other because your mom was working to look out for you, and all of a sudden you're in an unsafe environment again.
Right.
Did your mom not know about it? Was she working so much that she just didn't even see it, or did she turn her back because she didn't know what else to do?
And to be honest, the more I think about it, I think she kind of turned her back because she didn't know what else to do. Because once I turned 8. We moved away. And we didn't go back for Christmas, 4th of July.
So she knew something.
It was if we severed all ties to them.
Yeah.
So, which says my mom is a very family-oriented person. So she must have had some kind of inclination about something that would cause her to sever all ties with them.
I mean, I'm a dad, and albeit my daughter's developmentally delayed, so I'm on super hyper alert around somebody mistreating her. But I know my wife, I remarried after my wife passed away, and my wife has 2 kids, and she just could feel she was in an emotionally abusive marriage where a man would just get angry and do things, but never hit her and never hit the kids. But she at one point she just looked and said, I got to pack up and we got to get out of here. And she just left that situation. So it's hard for me to even imagine that your mom didn't know or your sister didn't know. And yet you don't know if it happened to your sister or not. So it's sort of, I mean, is it the way of the abuser, from what you understand in the work that you've done, to sort of silence everybody and not have anybody talk about it so that people even close by don't know what's going on?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And because it gives them control. Because abusing, what I've learned about abusers are they're seeking some kind of control. Because most abusers have been abused, so they lost control. And that's a way of them getting that back.
Yeah. So this is totally different direction than we went last time when we spoke, but I think it's
Yes.
okay. Um, even though your sister doesn't want to talk about it, is there any place in you that could say to her, I've been silenced this whole time in what I know, and I wonder if you've been silenced too? And if anything happened to you and I didn't step in to help you, I am so sorry, because I just was trying to take care of myself so much and and so beaten by the fact that I could say nothing to anybody. If something happened to you, will you know that I'm here for you now?
And we've had those talks, as much as she will allow.
And what does she say?
I just don't.
Okay.
I just I've several articles I've written. I let her read them, and she's like, I just don't want to talk about it. And her only explanation to me, and I don't know whether he used this or not, is that me and my sister look a lot alike, but I look like my mother,
Yeah.
and my sister looks like my father. And so I'm light, and she's very dark complected like my father. And so and she says this, that you got preferential treatment because you were light,
Wow.
because you look like my mom.
Wow.
So
So when we had this interview before and I lost it, which again, I apologize 1,000 times for,
that's okay.
but we were not in the situation we're in today.
No.
Today is June the 8th. It's day 14 of massive protests
Right.
around the public lynching of a knee on the throat of a black man for a long period of time, 2 minutes and 43 seconds after he was conscious, a police
Right.
officer. And we're dealing with racial tension, and we're dealing with racial inequality, and we're dealing with racism, systematic racism that has perpetrated every part of our culture.
Yeah.
One of the things I remember asking you, but I didn't really, it doesn't have the power that it has right now, is, does racism exist even within the lighter black skin and the darker black skin?
Um, Definitely. Um, it exists in the African American culture itself. Because it goes all the way back to slavery, because the light complected African American or the African slave would be in the house. And she would get hand-me-downs from the master, and she'd get to go places with the master. Oftentimes, she was the one who was the concubine,
Yeah,
to the master.
but that's a nice way
So,
of saying, that's a nice way of saying she was raped, right?
yes,
I mean, she was, the concubine makes it sound all pretty and sort of like nice and it's loving and caring. And maybe it was sometimes, but basically they were raped at the pleasure of
right,
the master.
right. And therefore, their children tended to get lighter and lighter and lighter.
I see.
Whereas the darker complected slaves were out in the field, they were farm hands, they brought in the crops. They were the ones that were physically beaten more often than a house slave. And it has continued to perpetrate our society. Cops, Caucasian people don't just do it to African Americans. African Americans do it to other African Americans. They call them rag bones, or, and they're like, wow,
So this is so insightful and so also disheartening to me in a way, because where does it stop? Like, how did it ever get to be that the color of our skin made us better or worse than somebody else? But it isn't just the color, be it white or black. It's even lighter black than
right,
darker black, or brown versus black, or yellow versus brown or black,
right.
right? I mean, at what point does all of that, how does that come into play, and how does it make any sense in the world that we are not part of one race, which is the human race, and not this abusive race of what we have to do to put each other down so that we feel a little bit better.
And that's something I honestly don't have an answer for. Because you even said male to female, and in the African American culture, if you're a man, you get to be dominant. And, in churches, you see it a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it's that need to believe that you're better than somebody else. It's the same thing that happens at some degree whenever you assault someone, whether it's verbally, physically. It's that need to have control over them.
Yeah. And it just seems like all of this, whether it's the racism or it's the abuse, it just seems like it has generational life. Seems like it's get handed down one generation to another generation. I mean, there's a saying that's said that hurt people hurt people, and
Yeah.
and it just right, and it just makes so much sense. So get back to your story for a minute, because um, was there a point where you were able to stand up for yourself? Was there a point where you were able, or something, where you were able to talk it through with somebody and have it stop? Not where you talked it through with somebody, but where you were able to just say, this is not going to happen anymore.
The second time it happened, and I was 16, I was babysitting, and totally different person, but the same thing happened. I was sexually assaulted while I was babysitting that night. I was so angry that the anger said, that's it. And even though I was drinking and I was smoking, I was like, nobody is going to have control over me.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to be in control of myself. But it was out of anger, not out of peace and calm.
Yeah.
And that state is almost a state of darkness. You're hurting more.
Yeah.
In that space, because it's not real control. It's not, I'm deciding to be happy because I want to be happy. It's, I'm going to be in control because I don't want you to be in control, which really does make you in control, because your shadow is still controlling my existence.
So can you see it that even though it comes from a place that isn't peaceful and calm and gaining control, that it's still a step up from where you were before, that being complacent and being abused, moving from that step to being angry and defiant and saying, I'm not going to take this anymore, even though it's not the final step that you want to go to, it's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
Like if you were peaceful and then became angry and violent, it would be a step in the wrong direction.
Right.
But from a place of being abused and just sitting there and taking it and just not having any idea how to stop it, to standing up and saying, no longer, man, not on my watch. You come at this, you're going to be in trouble.
And I agree. I think that's almost the first step when you allow yourself, I'm angry and no, I'm not going to take this. This isn't okay. That's almost that first step that you have to before you can ever reach peace, because in a weird sort of way, you're saying it's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to just hand over control of myself to you. You know, you start building, you don't know it, but you're truly starting to build boundaries for people.
You said something that you were babysitting and you were 16 years old and then it happened again, but you had been drinking and smoking. When did you start drinking and smoking?
After the second, well, lightweight drinking all along. I drunk from a very young age.
Very young being 5, very young being 8, very young being 2,
very young being probably 6.5, 7.
Get out of here.
Yeah, because alcohol is something that's very easy to get a hold of. And I learned, you know, you could drink, you know, somebody told you get a beer out the refrigerator, you went and you opened it and you said, I opened this for you, and you just didn't drink a lot. You just, you know, took a sip of it. So alcohol is easy, unfortunately, in our society for anybody to get a hold of. I didn't start smoking until after the second time. So I was about 16. I was right after that. I mean, I just went downhill real fast.
Yeah, but a lot of people at 16 start smoking, and especially in those days, right? And a lot of people go downhill pretty quick.
Yes.
What I'm interested in is this pivotal moment where you got mad and said, I'm not going to take that anymore. But at the same pivotal moment, you didn't get mad at the places that were protecting you from having pain, which was alcohol and cigarettes. You just got mad at the people that were perpetrating the pain. Did you ever get to a place where you said, I'm done. I can't hide behind the painkiller is almost as bad as the pain?
When I got to college and decided that I wanted to be a teacher, and my advisor told me, you know, you can't do drugs. That's the one thing you can't do. I just stopped that. He was like, I don't care what else you do, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I recognized, in order to be who I decided I wanted to be, I had to stop that. I want to say it was probably I don't even remember when I stopped drinking. It all, as I started to find that footing, that peaceful let go. I think things started to leave. Just I wish I could say there was a pivotal point that I said no more. Yep. But I think I just said, you know, I just don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. I know for me, I used to do drugs and I used to drink and I didn't smoke that much because by the time I could smoke, marijuana was available. And I said, if I'm going to do one thing, why wouldn't I just smoke marijuana instead of smoke cigarettes? That's stupid not to smoke marijuana. And so but at a certain point, I just said, this isn't the life that I choose for myself. And in the new life, that doesn't happen. And I just stopped everything. It was so easy. It wasn't hard. It wasn't to give up. That was so hard. Here's what interests me a little bit in the conversation right now. We've watched generational abuse through the course of all sorts of families. Um, what's to stop you because you were abused from carrying on the generational abuse? Is it in your family? Do you see it happening?
Um, no, it's not. I mean, why I didn't even let my kids go spend the night with their aunt. Nobody spent the night with anybody. You stay right here in this house.
Yeah.
My poor husband, because I was like, we can't go out. We can't, we can't, because I need to know where they are and what they're doing at all times. And I need to know they can't spend the night. So even if we went to the movies, we'd go back and pick them up, because that was just, that was my way of knowing something bad didn't happen to them. They never spent the night. I have a 16-year-old son who's never spent the night with a friend.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And the reason why I don't think it happened in our family, it cycled, is because I was consciously aware of it.
So I love that, and I can tell from just looking at you and feel that it doesn't happen in your family. But what is that change? What is that moment? Because how does it happen that it passes down generation from generation from generation? But then your generation, you said, this is not going to happen anymore. This is going to stop. What happens in that moment where the whole lineage stops? That's a powerful moment.
I think there is an awareness that it needs to stop. I think when people aren't aware of it, consciously aware of it, then they keep that cycle going. But when you're aware of it and you make conscious decisions, I mean, I looked at, when we started having children, I looked at everywhere they went. Who babysitted, who was the babysitter? I wanted background. I wanted,
right.
I wanted everything, because I was consciously aware that I was trying to prevent something from happening that happened to me.
Yeah.
So when people don't consciously try to prevent it, it happens.
Yeah.
And when people don't heal, aren't willing to do the work that it requires to heal, I think it happens again. It happens with someone else. Because I read in the article, and I'm a firm believer, that every sexual offender has been sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
In some way, in some form. And they weren't able to heal, talk about it, work through it, or become conscious toward it. And so they went and took someone else's power.
So I'm trying to relate to it through my own experiences, and I don't believe I was ever sexually assaulted or abused in any way, shape, or form. And yet, my mom and dad passed away when I was a kid. My dad passed away when I was 13, and my mom when I was 15. And what I see my mind has done, and even with doing a lot of work on myself, what my mind has done is it's sort of shut those areas and those years out of my life, because they're so painful for me to even remember that I lost. My dad was my hero, so I lost my hero, and and so I've sort of I've sort of put those memories in a room, so to speak, and I lock that door so I don't have to look at it, so I don't have to feel that pain. And over the years, I've gone back into the room and tried to take a look at it and sat with it a little bit, but not unlike your sister, maybe. It's just so painful that I don't want to even have to sort of think about it. So I wouldn't even know if something had happened or hadn't happened because the whole year, the whole until 15 is
Right.
locked away, right? In some ways, I can't believe I'm going to say this because it doesn't, nothing about your life has been fortunate except the change from Now I Dance. I mean, that's a fortunate place, but in some ways that place wasn't locked up for you. You lived it. You had a, what prevented you from putting it in a room where you just locked it up and didn't want to look at it? I'm not going to say like your sister because I don't know that she went through that thing, but that would be a common response to someone who had done something like that, right? Where they would
Right.
say, I just, no, I'm just not, I don't want to talk about it. And abuse is so powerful that we don't want to think that we don't even want to think of ourselves as being abused, or the shame and the guilt that we carry with ourselves for allowing something like that to have happened to us. What allowed you to look that shame and that guilt? Because what you said about yourself is not that you only were able to forgive the perpetrators, you were able to forgive yourself. What did you have to forgive yourself for?
Because during that, the midnight of my life, during the smoking and drinking, I was very mean, very destructive to myself. There are things that I did that put me in harm's way, and I had to forgive myself for that.
Yeah.
Um, Things that I said to people that I may not ever, in some cases, get the chance to apologize to them for. I had to forgive myself for it because they had died, they were gone, and I still owe them an apology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I honestly believe that the reason why I never closed that door is that there were always, and I call them angels, to who God just sent to me that held on to me.
Yeah.
And kept me from just slamming that door and never opening it, who are willing to walk through my pain with me and to come sit in that room with me as I sat there and, and looked at all the ugliness that was there.
Yeah. I want to get to those angels in a minute, but before we go there, were you ever able to tell your mom about what happened to you?
Before I actually started Transformation Speaks, because I didn't want anybody who heard my story to go to her and say, "Oh, did you know your daughter was, had
Right.
gone through all this?" So I told her, I don't know. I don't know how much she received of it. Um, because mom she does like my sister.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't get talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I told her, she seemed to have comprehended at least a little bit of it. And I haven't brought it up with her. Every now and then she'll ask me how Transformation Speaks is doing, or, she almost talks out about it separate from me.
Right.
Like, that's not, my daughter, that's that thing over there that she's
Right.
doing. So, she asked me, how's it going? And I'll go, it's going good. And we just moved to the next conversation. Because I don't really want to, my goal is not to hurt her.
Totally.
Or to make her feel any sort of way. Because that in that forgiving process, she was one of those people that, I had to let go and realize she did the best that she could. No matter what I thought about it, no matter what the outcome was, it was honestly the best she could do at that moment.
So to someone who is listening to this and is in the process of being abused, and I'm sure there's somebody listening to it right now that has gone through it, is being silent, is being told if something happens, if they say anything, they're going to be beaten. Their people they love are going to get hurt. Whatever the story is, what would you say to someone like that right now?
First, if you're in a situation that's harming you, I mean, where you're being sexually assaulted or physically violated, you owe it to yourself to remove yourself from that situation. I really believe that we damage ourselves. We allow people to damage us. And because we think we're doing the right thing, it's not the right thing. That's so. First of all, you got to seek safety.
Yeah.
And once you find that, and it may take you a while, and then at least seek someone you can talk to, because you don't want to lose your mind in all of this. And violence, abuse has a way of traumatizing you to a degree that you don't recognize until after you've gotten out of it.
Yeah.
So either find someone you can confide in or get out of this situation, and work while you're confiding to get out of the situation.
And so, like, what's become very clear to me during this rioting that's going on, which is mainly peaceful protests, and really good people just standing up and saying enough is enough. We won't stand for this racial intolerance anymore. But there's a certain level of control that we don't really know how to deal with.
Yeah.
Fixing the problem with police is not going to fix the problem of our country. I don't know where people stand politically and who their candidate of choice is, but we have a president right now who may or may not be doing things that are in keeping with the Constitution, and his whole and the fear of his whole party or anybody that speaks out against him because of the bullying that he will do to them and the names that we will call him and the job losses that will happen as a result of it and the careers that will be lost as a result of it. So how can we call on a policeman to stand up against another policeman when the leaders of our country are not even standing up against the intolerance of violence and abuse and bullying that's going on? How do we look at it and say to a Colin Kaepernick who just peacefully knelt during the national anthem before a football game, to say I want to kneel in not in opposition to our flag, but in opposition to brutality to my people, and him being blackballed by the NFL and losing his job and losing his fortitude. How does someone who is in an abusive situation even know that where they're going is safe? Your mom took you out of a situation to a place that you thought was safe, but she took you from the frying pan into the fire.
Right.
How do we even know that the people we think we can trust won't just abuse us because we wear a shame of abuse on us?
And unfortunately, you don't. And when I look at our country and I look at what's going on with the police and then what's going on with the president, I'm very aware that you can't make systemic change in the police department if the leadership still believes in an alternative way of doing things.
Yeah.
In a violence toward races, it doesn't even, or even against the Constitution, because it could be anybody. You're going, as long as the idea is power.
Yeah.
And power over other people. I know, and it sounds horrible, I know that real change is in the far distant future, because you need a different mentality.
Yeah.
In power, before you have to have someone in power who says that it's not all about power.
Yeah. And so to me, it even goes beyond that, because you can have someone in power, but then the people around them are still in
Right.
power, and they prevent them from
Right.
making the changes. And so, like, what I like about this conversation today, and there's not much that I like about it, because I'm so sorry that you had to go through what you went through. Really, from the pit of my heart and from the pit of my stomach, it just makes me so. I feel defiled that we would look to the people that we look to protect us, and they don't only not protect us, they abuse us, whether that be our parents in abuseful, sexually abusing us, or violently abusing us, or physically abusing us, whether that be our police forces, which is what we look to take care of us and protect us. It's all, whether that be in our government, which we look to help us take care of ourselves, and we don't. I mean, it's all across. And so the story that you have to tell, that you told 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago to me before, is almost changed entirely, not because your story has changed, but because the backdrop on which it comes from has changed. And it's so much so that you can say, my dad was basically a good man, but he beat the hell out of my mom.
Right.
Like, where in the scope of being a good man does that behavior come in? Right? But we say it because he wasn't a bad man all across the board.
Right.
The people that abused you weren't bad people all across the board. They were just bad people to you. But how does that make? I interviewed yesterday for my show a big black man, strong, beautiful man. He grew up in Compton and Watts, the tough section of LA.
Oh, wow.
He was a policeman for 22 years. I met him because he was the personal bodyguard and friend of Montel Williams, and I would go to Montel Williams' show with a woman by the name of Sylvia Brown when I was working at Hay House, and she was a guest. So every month we would go, and I would meet Joe, and he would watch out for us and take care of us. Just this gentle giant of a man. You do not want to be on the other side of him, right? But he told me, and our conversation was about, how does a man who grows up like that, with the abuse of what policemen do to that community? Like, I'm white, I'm like so out of the realm of understanding how this world works. We get in trouble, we call a policeman, and yeah, they might be aggressive, and they might be not so nice, and they might not be warm and fuzzy, but when I call a policeman, they're going to help me somehow to the best that they can. But in the black community, you call a policeman and you don't know what they're going to do. Policemen may or may not be there to help you. And he said, well, there's 10% of the people that are really not good people, whether they be policemen or regular citizens. 90% of the people are good. And you just have to hope when you call that policeman, you're going to get the 90%, not the 10%. But until we can make the 10% 5%, how do we stand up? How does the abusive community, whether they be sexually abused, whether they be violently abused, whether they be beaten, whether they be emotionally abused, how do they stand up? How do they come together and stand up against their abuser? This has been going on for a lot of years in America. This is 400 years to the black people.
Right.
But it also happened to the Jewish people in
Native
Germany,
Americans,
right?
yes.
And the Native Americans in America. And it's almost as if we have this consciousness that anybody that isn't like us is just a thing, and we can do whatever we want to a thing. They're not a human being. How do we get our humanity back? How like I'm asking you now from your transformation speaks place.
And we don't lose our voice. We keep talking. Everybody, and of whatever you're a victim of, you share your story, and you keep sharing your story, because there's something about a story that makes even the most inhumane person connect.
Yeah.
And so as long as we keep sharing our stories and we keep standing up, and we don't meet violence with violence.
Yeah.
Because when we do that, that just steals our humanity away from us. But we meet that inhumanity with love, that we'll begin to win people over, and it's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be over a month. We have more. I mean, we won't even do it with this, with all the rioting and all the, even peaceful protests are going on right now. These are systemic issues that we can pass legislation, but that's not going to change the heart of man.
No, totally.
It's just a piece of paper that,
yeah,
people will accept it or they won't. And that goes to what's in their heart.
Yeah. And I'm so ashamed of what I'm about to say, but I would just have to say it because it's just, I grew up in a lower class family. We were poor, but we were happy. My family was a happy family. We laughed around the dining room table. My mom made sure there was food on the table. My dad did everything he could to get us everything we needed, even though he died with a mountain full of debt. He didn't care. He just wanted to take care of us while he was here. Leave that he passed away, and all that was left on my mom. It wasn't quite as kind in action at that point anymore, because now we were totally in debt. But we loved our neighborhood, and we grew up and we played with the kids in our neighborhood in the driveways and in the schoolyards together. And then one day a black family moved into our neighborhood, and the white flight that took hold was unbelievable. We were one of the last to leave because we loved our neighborhood, and it didn't matter what color people's skins were.
Right.
And the houses were still the same houses. But I remember my dad coming home and saying, "Boy, our house just went in half the value." And I said, "Dad, how is it possible that the same house that we were in 2 weeks ago that had this value is now half value because people with different colored skin moved in?" He said, "Danny, that's what happens. And it'll end up being trashed." He's never been in a black neighborhood that was trashed. Right? He never lived with black people in this neighborhood to trash their places. But there's that, and he was not a bad man. He like, I feel like you saying my dad wasn't a bad man, but but there was systematic racism in there.
Right.
And how do you remove that from basically good people? Basically good people who feel it's just okay to beat the heck out of their wife. Basically good people who feel, basically good cops who believe it's okay to pin a man down and hold him and put their knee on his throat and lynch him because he can say it never happened, until now we have these little phones that can capture everything on their cameras. Right? And so we're evolving into a society where everything can be videoed. Is that going to help? Is that going to help the abused person in the abusive situations that you're in? Can they hook up videos? Can they start to get people? Because the whole time I grew up, it was he said. It was just that, no, you told us that, but the police said that, and who are we going to believe, you or the police?
And I'm sure there will be some things that are captured, but because of the nature of sexual assault, especially when you're talking about kids.
Yeah.
It's I still believe that like right now with COVID-19, we just don't know the damage that is being done to kids,
Yeah.
and nobody's there to support them.
Yep.
They don't go to school, so there wasn't anyone, seeing them every day to kind of check them out. So now things can go unchecked, and that's really concerning.
Yeah, because if you're living in an abused household, now
Right,
there's more stress. You're around all the time. You don't get to go to school where there's a check-in. Nobody knows if you're bruised because you're
right.
isolated, right?
And as a teacher, because kids will even turn off their cameras so you can't see them,
Mm.
and you just kind of wonder what's going on the other side of that
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I know in our prior conversations, there was a moment, a pastor, I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
who played a huge role in your life in terms of helping you turn it around, who was there for you and was around for you. Certainly in the white community, I don't know in the black community if this is true, but it seems like the presence of the church and the synagogue and the mosques and just the what we used to grow up with was the neighborhood religious center. Like for us, it was a synagogue. For you, it was a church, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the lack of that presence in our life is what's also leading to this moral decline?
Um, when I compare the pastor that you're speaking about with he retired and another pastor took his place, and I don't have a connection with him.
Yeah.
And I don't even feel that connection because it's a different vibe.
Yep.
Um, I really believe that the church used to be, or the religious community used to be all about helping the community, helping the people in the community. It was like a selfless act. And I'm not saying this new pastor is all about making money, but
Right.
now it seems to be like more about money
Yep.
and, prestige than it is about serving.
Yeah.
So I do think in a way, the moral decline has to do with the fact that they're no longer really present
Yeah.
for the most part, at least in my experience. They're not as present and concerned. Like I can remember like not going to church back, you were going to get a phone call.
Yeah, totally. I do too.
And now, especially with COVID, I haven't heard anything from my church in 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, even if you can't, you might not be able to go, but you could, you could call you.
Totally.
And if you're not checking on me, you're probably not checking on those kids.
Yeah. Marlisse, the path that we're walking seems to take us to a place that we don't want to go to.
Yes.
And yet we somehow still continue to walk that path to the place that we don't want to go to. You help a lot of people. You have gone through hell. And you say today that you can dance in the light of your life. Give us something that can help us stop, at least on that path, turn around if possible, take our arms and walk us a few steps in the opposite direction or in the direction on the path where we want to go. What would that be? What would that thing be that you would say to people you can't just keep going down that path.
I would honestly say stop treating people like you think they deserve to be treated, and start treating people like you want to be treated.
Okay.
So if you want kindness, be kind.
Beautiful.
If you want love, give love. If you want someone to listen to you, then listen to someone else. And I honestly believe that, because I struggle when I say, I'm like, I'm really walking in, I feel great, even though there is so much going on. But it's because I make it a conscious effort to listen to the people who are around me, and to be there for those people, and to let them know that, yes, I'm thinking about you. Are you okay? And I think as we each do that, we can stop walking this path that's about control and realize it's about serving ourselves and serving others and loving ourselves and loving others. And that you don't have to control anybody if you show love.
Yeah. I love that. When we spoke last time, you were doing you were giving an offer. Does that offer still hold?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, I meant to ask you before we came on, but so um, I want to, I want you to see in this offer that's being made to anybody who's listening to this podcast, the beauty of the heart of this woman that we're speaking with. Because she's making a free introductory trial of her transformative coaching for 2 months, not for one session, not for an introductory call to see if it can help you. She's offering to give of her time for 2 months free of charge to anybody who feels that they need somebody to just be there for them,
Right.
to hold them, to listen to them, to love on them, to treat them with the kindness that they can't find around them. Because she had somebody do that to her. And it might take longer than the 2 months of trial that she's doing, but she'll talk to you about that. Then you'll work out a program with her, then she'll figure it out. She has her prices, but she also has the fact she has the ability to do what she needs to do with people that need to do it. And
Yes.
I'm going to ask you not to take advantage of that. I'm going to ask you to take advantage of helping her in the ways she wants to help you, and allowing yourself to feed it forward, to become a part. Like, take the for those of you who are in abusive situations, if you don't go to transformationspeaks.com, if you don't sign up for her free 2 month program of coaching you one-on-one or coaching you in a group, however it goes, you are friggin' crazy. Allow her to help you move you through this situation. Everybody needs somebody when they're
Yes.
down to just hold them and tell them it's okay and help them get through it. What I love about what she wrote in the beginning that she spoke of is that I don't pretend that this stuff never happened. I'm going to paraphrase that by saying, I don't look out the world and think the world is better than it is. I see
Right.
I see what's happening, but I also don't look out at the world and see it worse than it is. Because I
Right.
also see there are little angels out there that when they come down and hold you in their wings and hold you in their arms, can comfort you through the pain of this moment. Understand that there's a pain, but understand that there are angels like Marlisse that are here to help you. And I'm going to tell her to let me know if you've called her or not. And if you haven't, I'm going to come on in another conversation. And I can't say scold you, but I'm going to love you into loving, because what the heck are you waiting for? It doesn't get any better than this. Here's a woman that's been to hell and back, who's willing to make sure you don't have to go as far into hell as she went. And if you're already there, she's willing to hold your hand and help you come back.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Tell them again. I think we said it. It's transformationspeaks.com. She has all these other
Yes.
links that I'm going to put in the website, in the show notes. But is that the best place to reach you?
Yes. There's a form on that will go directly to my email. So that's the best place to reach me.
So just go on to that, make contact with her, tell her what you're interested in, tell her you want to sign up for this free 2 months of coaching. And for God's sake, follow her example. Do something like that for other people too. How can you reach out in a time where our world is in desperate need of love? We're in desperate need of turning this world around. It cannot go on like this, with this systematic racism, systematic controlism, systematic desire to be better and beat up and abuse that's going on in the world today, whether it be from government, physical, sexual, mental, emotional. We live in a very abusive society right now. It's time to find somebody who can allow your transformation to speak. Go to transformationspeaks.com. Marlisse, I want to thank you so much. Is there anything you want to just close with before we go?
Each one reach one. If each one of us can just reach one of us, we will make a change.
Yeah. Each one, reach one. I think that's going to be the name of this podcast. I think that is just so beautiful. Marlisse, thank you again for being on here. People, Facebook community, thank you for showing up again and listening. Please share this podcast with your friends. Please share, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. Please let other people know that Marlisse is here. Share her with everybody else that you know. Until next time, thank you so much.